friends, and welcome back to the Wildenburn Reads YouTube channel. I'm Emily, and this is where I love to talk about cozy, wholesome, old-fashioned books and all those sorts of bookish things. Today I have my April reading wrap-up video. I was thinking about combining my April and May wrap-up into one video, but I've had some pretty solid reading months these last 2 months, and it was just going to be too many books. So I decided I was going to split it up because that would make it a little bit easier for filming and for editing. I'm going to try and keep this video at about 20 minutes, hopefully under 30, but we will see. I had a pretty good reading month. So, as always, like I say in these videos, I don't count how many books that I have read in the month, so there won't be a total number of books read. A couple other things of note: I'm probably not going to talk about every single book that I've read. I'm going to try and focus on the ones that I have like really, not strong opinions, but thoughts on. And finally, I will try and have chapters throughout this video so that you can skip over certain books. There are some books that I definitely want to talk about that have spoilers in them, so if they're a book that you're interested in, just skip over to the next section. That being said, let's get into it. The first book that I finished in April was The Tin Soldier by Temple Bailey, and I had some thoughts on this book. So it's a book set during World War I, and I can't remember the names of the characters, but there is a doctor's daughter is the main heroine character, and then the main guy, the main man, is a wealthy, I don't know, like almost not aristocratic, because he lives in they're in America. I'm not explaining it very well, but this is set during America. It's before the Americans had like really properly joined in with World War I, and it's all about talking about the kind of day-to-day lives, what it was like during the war and what they're doing. It's got this romance in it. It's a really lovely story, and I really enjoyed it. However, again, this one's going to have spoilers, so if you're interested in reading this book based off of my terrible explanation of it, then skip forward. The ending was a little bit disappointing to me just because it was so open-ended, and I was just like, what on earth is happening? It was quite a tragic book in parts because there are different characters that die, but it was just, you really felt like it was wartime sort of a thing. There was this really cute couple and they were going to get married, and then of course he died, and like it's super tragic, and they were like secondary characters, but it was just gut-wrenching. Well, then it ends with this very open-ended ending where you don't know. So we've got our main girl. I cannot, again, this has been like a month and a half since I read this book, so I can't remember the names, but our main girl character, her husband and father have just like gone over to fight in the war, and it ends with you not knowing if they're coming back. And initially I was just like, this is a horrible book. This is the worst sort of an ending. I've got a little bit of something in my eye. And I was just like, what on earth? However, then I went and looked it up, and I realized that this book was written before World War I ended. They didn't know if they were going to win, sort of a thing. And that really changed my thoughts on it. I was like, okay, that makes so much more sense, because I was like, why on earth is this book, like, it's like a cliffhanger, and there's no book 2. But then when I realized that, it made so much more sense. Like the whole book was very, like, it kept talking about like the Battle Hymn Republic, which is a beautiful hymn. It's a song that we sang a decent amount growing up. But it kept talking about that, and I was like calling soldiers to come and fight for your country, do your duty, be honorable, and fight. And so it made so much more sense when I realized that it was written like during the war, and the war had not yet ended. I was like, gotcha. The whole book made so much more sense. So I did really enjoy it. It was heartbreaking in parts and a little bit hard to get through, and that ending was not what I wanted it to be, but it was a beautifully written book. So then the next book that I read is Charlotte, I think it's Fairlie, I'm not 100% sure, D.E. Stevenson. One of probably my favorite D.E. Stevenson. My plan is once I finish reading through all of her books, I'm going to do like a tier ranking video and rank all of the D.E. Stevenson books, because I've been reading so many of them this year. She is one of my all-time favorite authors. I absolutely love her. I love her writing. I love her stories. Like, oh, she's amazing. So Charlotte Fairlie is another one of my like very favorite D.E. Stevenson. It's about Charlotte, who is the headmistress of this girls' school, and she meets a pupil. One of her pupils there ends up having some messy family situations going on, and so they kind of meet through circumstances. She gets to know this girl a little bit better than she knows most of her pupils, because she's really worried about showing favoritism to any of the different girls and then it causing issues. And so she ends up getting to know her a little bit better, and lo and behold, she gets invited back to this girl's home. And her home is this like island in Scotland. And her dad is this, he's not a widower, his wife like left him and wasn't very nice about it, but just left him. So he's single and available and Scottish. It was beautiful. I loved it so much. There are these other like secondary characters, which were these children whose father was very neglectful and kind of a horrible person. But there's like a redemptive twist for their story too. Like, it was just, I loved it so much. And I was reading it when the spring weather was really starting to come back, and so it's talking about like Scotland and all the countryside and everything, and it was just, oh, I loved it so much. Definitely a D.E. Stevenson book that I want to reread. Then I did end up finishing, I'll just quickly summarize it, but I ended up finishing the Sackett series by Larrimore. I read, let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I read the last 7 books in the series. Yes. It's amazing. As always, I've talked about Larrimore a number of times on this channel, and as always, he's still my favorite author. The one thing that I did really enjoy, since this is my first time reading through the Sackett series from beginning to end, was that I picked up on a lot more of the little references between books that I've never noticed or paid attention to before. And so because I read them in the chronological order, then I was like, oh, this is referencing this story that happened in this book, and that was really fun. I really loved it. But of note, one of my all-time favorite ones is Ride the Dark Trail. That one's a great one. And then of the other ones, I do really like The Lonely Men. That one's pretty solid. Can't tell if that's one of my kids making noise. Hang tight. Okay. I have my baby monitor right here. I'm a little bit deaf. I have some hearing loss, and so I'm always a little paranoid that I'm not hearing them. Even though the baby monitor's right here. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. As I was saying, I do really enjoy The Lonely Men and Ride the Dark Trail. Those are two of my favorite, or probably my 2 favorites of the Larrimore books that I read in April. I read Dandelion Cottage by Carroll Rankin. This is a beautiful book. I highly recommend it. It is, I believe, a middle grade book. It's about these 4 girls that end up being able to sort of rent a derelict cottage. It's kind of falling apart and in not very good condition, and they just haven't gotten around to repairing it, like the village council or whatever haven't gotten around to repairing it. So the girls are able to, in exchange for getting rid of all of the dandelions in the yard, they are allowed to rent it for the summer. And it's this really cute story about these 4 girls, they're friends, and they get to like play house in this cottage. And if I had read this book when I was a little girl, oh my goodness, I would have loved it. Like, I loved it even as an adult, but especially as a little girl, I was always thinking about having like a little house or a little room or a little corner that was just mine, that I could do whatever I wanted to with it. And so reading this book would have just been heavenly. I would have adored it. So I highly recommend it. The writing was really fun. I do believe that there are further books in the series, which I haven't read yet, but I might investigate those. So, especially as the weather is getting warmer and stuff, this is supposed to be like over the summer. So it kind of starts in spring and then goes throughout. So it's excellent time of year to read it. Okay, I don't know how much more I'll be able to film because this cheeky monkey really tries to get my camera tripod. I also read the Musgraves by D.E. Stevenson. I'm just going to go ahead and read you the little summary. Esther Musgrave, an attractive widow, has her hands full trying to keep her energetic family together and on speaking terms. Her 3 daughters, prickly Delia, sensible Meg, and carefree Rose, mean everything to her, especially since the death of her husband Charles. The story of the Musgraves in their Cotswold home, their loves and hates, hopes and disappointments, is vividly recounted in this charming chronicle of family life. Pretty much describes it all. It's really lovely. I loved the Meg character and Esther, and as I am now a mom and getting older and all that, I find that I really, really enjoy books of this nature where they're very, very home life and trying to figure out navigating the diplomatic... I'm trying to think of the best way to word this. The diplomacy that is required to keep everyone at peace with one another. I find it very, very fascinating. So it was, again, another lovely D.E. Stevenson book, and I, as with all of them, heartily recommend it. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Then I also read, let me see, Seaview House. Let me pull it up here. By Elizabeth Fair. And this is my second Elizabeth Fair book that I have read, and I really liked it. I have found that with Elizabeth Fair, she tends to do some sort of a love triangle, which isn't my favorite. I dislike love triangles immensely, but she seems to do it in a way that's a bit more palatable. So the description for this one is, let me see here. This is not a very good summary of it. But it's about 2 sisters, Edith and Rose, and they are keeping a hotel, Seaview House. And Rose has a daughter named Lucy, and then there's this kind of crotchety older neighbor called Mr. Heritage. Yes. And he doesn't care for Lucy because he thinks she's just too attractive and just too young and like not respectful enough of the like old, I don't know, I'm trying to think how you would describe it, but like the old-fashioned ways. So then he becomes friendly with his godson, Edward, and then there's this other guy named Neville who is interested in wooing Lucy, and it's just a whole, like, village life tale. And I do think that Elizabeth Fair does it a little bit more, where she almost focuses more on the, how would I describe it? Flare-ups, the disagreements, the misunderstandings, that's the word. She seems to focus more on the misunderstandings and stuff than D.E. Stevenson tends to. And so it is a little more stressful for me to read her books, just because you're just like, stop getting so confused and misunderstanding people. But it was still a good fun. It was still good fun to read the book. And I would be interested in reading more of Elizabeth Fair's books. So, let's see, what else? Then I also read Mulberry Square by Lida, Larrimore. Amazing. Highly recommend it. It is a little bit hard because it has one of those like snooty characters who's got the company face where they're so nice and polite to everyone else, but they're kind of horrible when they're back at home. And I hate those types of characters. They're so like manipulative and horrible. There have been a number of different books that I've read where there is that type of a character. In this situation, there's two sisters, and one of the sisters is this beautiful, gorgeous girl, and everybody's like falling in love with her and this whole thing. But then she is kind of mean. Not kind of. She's mean and petty and like spoiled and bratty and kind of just all around not a very nice person. And then there's a younger sister who's very sweet and lovely, and she's always considered herself kind of plain, and so she's just sort of the contented, happy daughter. And their father is a doctor, and they live in Mulberry Square. And then there is a apprentice, sort of a doctor, that comes to work with their father. And of course, the drama unfolds. It's a beautiful story. Another one of those old-fashioned, heartwarming, just lovely, lovely things. I very, very much enjoyed it, and so much so that I would be interested in reading more of Lida Larrimore's books, if she wrote any more, because I don't really know much of anything about her. It's just my mom recommended this book, and I was able to find it on Kindle, so I read it, and I really love it. So, highly recommend that one. And then just a couple more. I ended up reading the Grey Mask by Patricia Wentworth, which is the first book in the Miss Silver series. I was intending to reread the entire Miss Silver series because I love it so much, but there are a couple of the books that I just have a little bit of a harder time getting into. And so I only ended up reading the first one. And then I reread The Little White Horse by Elizabeth Goudge. I don't remember now. It is a book that I have not read in years, like since I was a child. And it is such a beautiful, beautiful story. It's got like fairy tale elements almost. It's about... You're making a lot of noise. Yeah. You just want my tripod. It's about Maria and her governess, Miss Heliotrope, and they are traveling to go and stay with Maria's cousin, Sir Benjamin, in the countryside, and so they go and stay at his house with him, and then they find out that, it is Maria, isn't it? I always second guess myself. And they go and stay there, and then all these like adventures unfold. I don't really want to talk too much about it because it is just such a beautiful story. I recommended it in my spring reads video that I did this year, and I even more heartily say that it's a fantastic spring read. There's lots of talk of like the countryside coming to life because it begins in the springtime, which I didn't fully realize, and so it's just lovely. I really, really, really enjoyed rereading it, and it is, again, a book that I would so like to have a physical copy of, but it's one of those that it's a little bit harder to get the edition that I would like to have. So yes, highly, 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 highly recommend that one. And for that, that's everything that we're going to talk about today. I know it's been a little bit more chaotic maybe than normal, but I hope that you enjoyed, and stay tuned because stinker. I should be trying to film my May reads wrap up here in the next week or so. Yeah, also apologies for the baby. He's just being loud. Such is motherhood. But yeah, I hope that you're having a wonderful reading month. I would love to know if there were any books you read in April. I know we're pretty much through May, but if there are any books you read in April that you really, really loved and enjoyed, I'd love to hear about it. But yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!